Commander Yuna pressed her fingers against her tired eyes and looked at the endless streams of light flowing across her control screens. The galactic communications network never stopped. Day and night, messages flew between thousands of worlds, scattered across the galaxy like bright stars in an ocean of darkness. Her ship, the Valorian survey vessel Horizon's Edge, floated quietly in space near the outer edge of known territory. They were mapping old trade routes that had been forgotten for decades. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. "Commander," said Minho, her navigator, as he floated over to her station. His voice was soft and thoughtful. "Do you remember when Earth used to be part of all this?" Yuna looked up from her screens. Minho was pointing at a section of the communication logs that showed data from the year 2184. The records glowed with thousands of messages that had once come from a small, blue planet called Earth. "They were so loud back then," Yuna said with a small smile. "So excited about everything." She pulled up the historical files about humanity. The records showed that Earth had joined the galactic community in 2157, just over 300 years ago. Back then, humans had been like children discovering a new playground. They wanted to talk to everyone, learn everything, and share all their ideas. The humans had sent music that made even the cold Altarians cry with joy. They shared stories that made the logical Centaurians laugh for the first time in centuries. Their mathematical discoveries had helped solve problems that had puzzled scientists for thousands of years. "Look at this," Minho said, bringing up more old records. They sent 17 different cultural exchange programs in their first year alone. They wanted to learn every language, taste every food, understand every custom. Yuna nodded as she read through the files. Humans had been traders who made fair deals with everyone. They were scientists who asked strange questions that led to amazing discoveries. They were artists who created beautiful things that no one had ever imagined before. Then, on March 15th, 2184, everything changed. The messages from Earth simply stopped, not slowly, like a civilization that was dying from war or disease. Not with warnings or calls for help. One day they were sending hundreds of messages across the galaxy, and the next day there was nothing but empty silence. "I was just a young officer then," said Taeyeon, their communications expert, joining the conversation. "I remember the first day when no messages came from Earth. We thought it was just a technical problem. Maybe their main transmitter was broken. But it wasn't," Yuna said quietly. "No," Taeyeon continued. "Days passed, then weeks, then months. The silence stretched on and on. Other civilizations started sending messages to Earth, asking if they were okay. No one answered. The galaxy had waited for 2 full years, sending ship after ship toward Earth's solar system to check on humanity. Every ship that went came back with the same report. No response to any signals, no signs of life, no activity at all. The memorial services were beautiful," Minho said, his voice full of sadness. "Do you remember? The Altarians composed that haunting song for them. It played on every world for a full year," Yuna remembered. The song had been called The Silence of Stars, and it spoke of a young race that had burned too bright and too fast, like a candle in a strong wind. She opened Earth's current file in the galactic database. The words on the screen were cold and final. *** civilization status, extinct, self-terminated, solar system, quarantined, avoid contact, ***, another young species that couldn't handle the complexity of galactic life, Taeyeon said, reading over her shoulder. That's what the experts decided. They said humans probably destroyed themselves in some war, or maybe they had a plague, or their technology went wrong. It happens more than we like to admit, Minho added sadly. Young civilizations get excited, try to grow too fast, and then something goes wrong. We've lost dozens of species that way. Yuna stared at the quarantine notice. For 300 years, No one had been allowed to visit Earth's solar system. It was marked as a dead zone, a place of sadness and failure. Ships avoided it completely, taking longer routes to get where they needed to go, rather than travel through the empty space where humanity had once lived. "Sometimes I wonder what really happened to them," she said softly. "They seemed so hopeful, so full of life. It's hard to believe they just gave up." "Maybe that was their problem," Taeyeon suggested. "Too much hope, not enough caution. The galaxy can be a dangerous place for those who trust too easily." The three officers sat in comfortable silence for a moment, looking at the old records of a dead civilization. Around them, the galactic communications network continued its endless chatter. But there was an empty space where Earth's voice should have been. 300 years of silence, long enough for most of the galaxy to forget that humanity had ever existed at all. Commander. Ji-hoon wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the ancient stone carvings on Kepler 44b. His team had been digging through these ruins for 3 weeks now, trying to understand the civilization that had built them millions of years ago. The work was slow and careful, but that was how archaeology always went. The planet was quiet and dead, with no atmosphere and no signs of recent life. Perfect for studying the past without any distractions. Ji-hoon's ship, the Starwalker, floated in orbit above them while he and his team worked on the surface in their protective suits. "Commander," came a voice through his helmet radio. It was Nari, his science officer, calling from the ship. "You need to see something." The long-range scanners just picked up some very strange readings. Ji-hoon looked up at the dark sky where his ship was just a tiny dot of light. "What kind of readings?" "I think you should come up here," Nari said, her voice sounding confused and worried. "I've run the diagnostic 4 times, but the readings are the same every time." 20 minutes later, Ji-hoon was floating in the zero-gravity observation deck of his ship, still brushing dust from the ancient ruins off his suit. Nari was at the scanner station, her dark eyes wide with concern. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the screen. "These readings are coming from the Sol system." From Earth, Ji-hoon felt his heart skip a beat. "That's impossible. Earth has been dead for 300 years. "That's what I thought too," Nari said. "But look at these electromagnetic patterns. They're organized, structured. This isn't just random noise from dead equipment." The scanner display showed wave patterns that moved in perfect mathematical sequences. Ji-hoon had seen similar patterns before, but only from active, living civilizations. These were the kinds of signals that came from cities, from computers, from millions of beings using technology every day. "And look at this," Nari continued, changing the display. "These are energy signatures, massive ones. Whatever is producing these signals is using more power than most entire star systems." The screen now showed dots of light scattered throughout Earth's solar system, not just around Earth itself, but around Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and even in the empty space between planets. Each dot represented an energy source powerful enough to run a major city. "There's more," Nari said quietly. "The scanners are detecting what look like megastructures, huge constructions in space, bigger than anything we've ever built." Ji-hoon stared at the readings, his mind trying to process what he was seeing. "Run a deep scan," he ordered. "I want to know everything about what's happening in that system." "Sir," called Taeyeon from the communications station across the deck. His voice was tight with sudden fear. "We have a problem." "What is it?" Ji-hoon asked. "Something is scanning us, right now. A very deep, very thorough scan of our entire ship." The lights on the ship flickered once, twice, then returned to normal. But Ji-hoon could feel something was different. The air felt charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm. "Where is the scan coming from?" he demanded. Taeyeon's fingers flew over his controls, but the readings made no sense. I can't tell, sir. The signal is coming from everywhere, and nowhere at the same time. It's like the entire Sol system is one giant scanner. Suddenly, every alarm on the ship began to sound at once. The crew looked around in panic as their control panels lit up with warning lights. "What's happening?" Nari shouted over the noise. "The movement systems are activating," called Minjun from the pilot's station. "But I'm not touching the controls." Jihoon felt the ship beginning to move. Slowly at first, then faster. Through the observation window, he could see the stars shifting as they changed direction. "Cut the engines," he ordered. "I can't," Minjun replied, panic in his voice. "The ship isn't responding to any of my commands. Something else is controlling us." The ship was accelerating now, moving away from Kepler-4 for 2b and toward the inner galaxy. Jihoon checked their course and felt his blood turn cold. They were heading directly toward the Sol system. "Are we being attacked?" asked Nari. Jihoon studied the readings carefully. The force pulling them was incredibly gentle, like being carried by invisible hands. Their ship wasn't being damaged or threatened in any way. It was being invited. "I don't think so," he said slowly. "I think we're being brought somewhere." "Brought where?" "To Earth." The crew fell silent as they realized what was happening. After 300 years of complete silence, something in Earth's solar system had noticed them. Something powerful enough to take control of their ship from thousands of light years away. Something that wanted to meet them. Jihoon walked to the ship's communication system and activated the general intercom. His voice echoed through every corridor and room on the ship. "All hands. This is the commander," he announced, trying to keep his voice calm and steady. "Prepare for first contact protocols." After 300 years of silence, it appears that humanity is about to speak again. Through the observation window, the stars continued to slide past as they raced toward a meeting that would change everything. They thought they knew about the galaxy the moment their ship entered Earth's solar system. Everything around them began to change. Jihoon watched through the viewing window as something impossible started to happen. The empty space around their ship filled with light, and that light began to take shape. First came thin lines of glowing energy, stretching out like the skeleton of some enormous building. Then walls appeared, made of something that looked like captured starlight. Within minutes, their small ship was sitting inside a space station larger than most cities. "This is impossible," Nari whispered, pressing her face against the window. Her science training told her that what she was seeing could not exist, but her eyes showed her otherwise. The walls of the station seemed to be made of crystallized light that shifted and moved like living water. Corridors twisted and bent in ways that hurt to look at, connecting sections that should have been impossibly far apart. Gravity flowed through the station like a gentle river, pulling people down in some areas and letting them float in others, exactly where it was needed most. "Commander," said Taeyeon from his station, "I'm reading atmosphere in the docking bay. Earth, normal pressure and oxygen levels." "How is that possible?" asked Minjun. "We're in open space. There's no way to contain an atmosphere without walls." But as they watched, their ship was gently guided into what looked like an ordinary docking bay, except the walls were transparent and they could see stars shining through them. Somehow, the air stayed inside while the walls let light pass through as if they weren't there at all. When the docking was complete, Jihoon led his team through the airlock and into the station. The first thing he noticed was that he could breathe normally, even though he could see space all around them through the clear walls. The second thing he noticed was the human waiting for them. The man looked exactly like the humans in the old database files from 300 years ago. No strange modifications to his body, no mechanical parts, no signs of genetic changes. He was simply a middle-aged human male, with kind eyes and gray hair at his temples. He wore simple clothes that could have come from any world in the galaxy. "Welcome back to Sol System," the human said, speaking in perfect Valorian language. His voice was warm and friendly, like greeting old friends. "My name is Hyunwoo. We've been expecting you." Ji-hoon felt his mouth fall open in surprise, expecting us. But how? We didn't send any messages. Our stealth systems were active. We didn't even transmit our approach vector. Hoonwoo smiled gently, the way a teacher might smile at a student who had asked an innocent question. Your stealth systems have been obsolete for about 250 years. Commander Ji-hoon, we've been watching you since you left Kepler-44 to be. Watching us? Nari asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We've been watching everyone, Hyunwoo said simply. Every ship, every world, every civilization in the galaxy. We never really left. You see? We just stopped talking. He began walking down a corridor that seemed to know where they wanted to go. The walls shifted and moved around them, creating the perfect path without anyone having to choose directions. As they walked, Ji-hoon could see through transparent sections into laboratories and workshops, where humans were working with technologies that made no sense. In one room, he saw humans working with materials that seemed to bend and flow like liquid metal, but held shapes that defied physics. In another, people were studying displays that showed three-dimensional maps of the entire galaxy, with tiny dots of light marking every inhabited world. This is impossible, Nari said again, stopping to stare at a workshop where humans were building devices that seemed to fold space around themselves. The energy requirements alone should tear apart this entire system. What seems impossible to you is simply a matter of understanding how the universe really works, Hyunwoo said kindly. We've had 300 years to figure out some things that others haven't discovered yet. They reached a massive viewing area with transparent walls that stretched up and down farther than they could see. Through the walls, Earth hung in space. Below them, blue and green, and more beautiful than any of them had ever imagined. But what took their breath away were the structures surrounding the planet. Enormous habitats floated in Earth's orbit, looking like living flowers made of light and metal. Each one was large enough to hold millions of people, and they moved in slow, graceful patterns around the planet, like a dance that had been going on for centuries. Why? Nari asked, her voice filled with wonder and confusion. Why did you disappear? Why did you stop talking to the galaxy? Why did you let everyone think you were dead? Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the beautiful sight of Earth and its orbital gardens. When he finally spoke, his voice was serious and sad, because we needed time to solve a problem that the galaxy doesn't know it has, he said quietly. We needed 300 years to develop the tools and knowledge necessary to save everyone. He turned to look at them, and his gentle eyes were filled with worry. And now, he continued, time has almost run out. Hyunwoo led them to a room that was unlike anything Ji-hoon had ever seen. The walls, floor, and ceiling were all transparent, making it feel like they were floating in space itself. In the center of the room stood a human woman with short black hair and intelligent eyes. This is Solman, Hyunwoo said. She will show you what we discovered. Solman nodded to them and then touched something in the air. Suddenly, the entire room filled with light, and they found themselves standing inside a perfect three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Stars twinkled all around them like tiny jewels, so close they felt they could reach out and touch them. What you're seeing is every star system in the galaxy, Solman explained. But this isn't just a map. This shows us how each star has behaved over the past 1,000 years. She moved her hand, and the galaxy began to change. Some stars grew brighter, others dimmed, and a few flickered like candles in the wind. Red dots appeared scattered throughout the galaxy, marking places where something had gone wrong. At first glance, these look like random events, Solman continued. A solar flare in the Centauri system, a gravitational problem near Altair, a star that burns too hot in the outer rim. Every civilization that has seen these events has recorded them as natural accidents. Nari stared at the red dots. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands, spread across the galaxy with no obvious pattern. But they're not accidents, are they? she asked quietly. No, Soman said. Watch what happens when we look at the pattern over time. The galaxy began to move like a slow movie. Years passed in seconds, decades in minutes. As time moved forward, Ji-hoon began to see something that made his blood run cold. The red dots weren't random at all. They formed lines, spreading outward from certain points, like cracks in glass. There, Soman said, stopping the display at a specific moment. Do you see it now? Ji-hoon did see it. The red dots formed a perfect, geometric pattern, like a vast web stretching across the entire galaxy. Each point was positioned exactly where it needed to be to affect the stars around it. Who did this? Taeyeon asked, his voice shaking. A race we call the Architects, Hyunwoo answered. They disappeared millions of years ago, but they left behind machines, thousands of them, hidden throughout the galaxy. The display changed too. Show small, dark objects floating in space near various stars. They looked innocent enough, like pieces of space rock or abandoned satellites. But as Ji-hoon watched, he could see thin beams of energy reaching out from these machines to touch nearby stars. Each machine waits for the right moment, Somin explained. When conditions are perfect, it sends out a pulse of energy that causes a tiny change in a star's behavior, a small solar flare, a minor gravitational shift. Nothing that would seem dangerous by itself. But when you put them all together, Nari whispered, when you put them all together, you get a chain reaction that will destroy every star in the galaxy. Soman finished. The display now showed what would happen in the future. Starting from a few key points, waves of destruction would spread outward. Stars would become unstable, affecting their neighbors, which would affect their neighbors, and so on. Like dominoes falling, the collapse would spread until the entire galaxy was dark and dead. How long do we have? Ji-hoon asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. 52 years, Hyunwoo said, his voice heavy with sadness. That's when the first major cascade will begin. The machines have been working for 1,000 years to set up the perfect conditions. In 52 years, they'll activate the final sequence. And after that, within 200 years, every star in the galaxy will either collapse into a black hole or explode into a supernova, Somin said. Every planet, every civilization, everything we know will be gone. Ji-hoon felt dizzy. The room seemed to spin around him as he tried to understand what he was hearing. But why didn't anyone else see this? Surely someone should have noticed a pattern this big. You would need to monitor every star system in the galaxy, simultaneously, for over 300 years to see the pattern, Somin replied. No single civilization has that capability. Each one only watches their own region of space. Except for us, Hyunwoo added. We've been watching everything since we went silent. Every star, every system, every tiny change. It took us 200 years just to understand what we were seeing. The display now showed something new. Thousands of sleek ships hidden throughout Earth's solar system. They were unlike anything in the galactic database, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. You've been preparing for this? Nari said, staring at the hidden fleet. For 3 centuries, Hyunwoo confirmed. We needed time to develop the technology to fight these machines. We needed to understand how they work, how they communicate with each other, how to turn them off. And do you understand them? I mean, yes, Soman said. But we can't do this alone. There are too many machines, spread across too much space. We need every civilization in the galaxy working together. Hyunwoo looked directly at Ji-hoon. That's why we broke our silence now, Commander. Not because we want to rejoin galactic society, but because the galaxy is about to die, and we're the only ones who know how to save it. The war against the ancient machines began 3 days after Ji-hoon's crew returned to the galaxy with humanity's warning. At first, no one believed the story. 300 years of silence, and now humans claimed the galaxy was about to die. It sounded impossible. But when the human ships emerged from Earth's solar system, everything changed. Jihan watched from his ship as the first human vessel approached the Valorian fleet. It looked like nothing he had ever seen before. The hull seemed to be alive, shifting and flowing like liquid metal. As he watched, the ship's shape changed completely, growing longer and thinner to slip between two asteroids, then becoming wider and flatter to catch the solar wind. "How are they doing that?" Nari asked, staring at her scanner readings. "I don't know," Ji-hoon replied. "But look at the speed they're moving." The human ships crossed distances that should have taken hours in just minutes. They moved through space like dolphins swimming through water, graceful and fast, and completely silent. The first battle against the machines took place near the Centauri system. The ancient devices had been hiding in the outer edges of the solar system for thousands of years, looking like ordinary chunks of space rock. When the human ships arrived, the machines suddenly came to life. Beams of red energy shot out from the machines, trying to destroy the approaching ships. But the human vessels simply changed shape, letting the energy pass harmlessly through holes that appeared in their hulls. Then they fired back with weapons that seemed to bend reality itself, wrapping the machines in bubbles of twisted space until they crushed themselves. It should have been a victory, but it wasn't. "Commander Dong-yuk, to all ships," came a voice over the communication system. "We've destroyed the machines here, but 10 more have activated in other systems. They know we're coming." From the command center on Earth's primary orbital station, Dong-yuk coordinated the growing battle. His screens showed red dots appearing all across the galaxy as more and more machines woke up from their long sleep. "We need help," he announced to the gathered representatives from dozens of worlds. "We need the Centauri manufacturing plants to build more ships. We need the Altarian computers to track all the machines. We need the Draconian mining ships to gather materials. We need everyone." What happened next was something no one had ever imagined possible. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years suddenly found themselves working together. The proud Centaurians, who usually refused to share their technology, opened their factories to build ships designed by humans. The logical who never showed emotion, worked day and night to process the massive amounts of data needed to track every machine in the galaxy. Even the warlike Draconians, who solved most problems by fighting, found themselves following human coordinators, who somehow knew exactly how to talk to them, how to make them feel important and valued instead of just used. Ji-hoon found himself commanding a joint task force that included ships from 20 different worlds. A month earlier, half of these species had been shooting at each other. Now they flew in perfect formation, following battle plans created by humans, who understood not just tactics, but how to make different species work together without fighting. "How do they do it?" asked Nari, watching as a human coordinator settled an argument between two alien captains just by talking to them for a few minutes. "I think they see something in us that we don't see in ourselves," Ji-hoon replied. The war went on for 2 years. Every day brought new battles as the machines fought back with increasing desperation. But slowly, system by system, the ancient devices were shut down. The humans had learned how to turn off the machines without destroying them, breaking the connections that had taken 1,000 years to build. The final battle took place at the center of the galaxy, where the master control systems had been hidden in the gravitational chaos around the central black hole. Commander Jisoo led the joint task force, flying ships from 200 different worlds into the most dangerous place in the galaxy. As the last machine powered down, representatives from every species cheered together in a harmony that echoed across space. Humans, Centaurians, Altarians, Draconians, and dozens of others, all celebrating as one people. "It's done," Jisoo transmitted back to Earth. "The machines are offline. The cascade pattern is broken." On Earth, Hyunwoo stood in the same viewing area where he had first met Ji-hoon's crew 2 years earlier. Now, Instead of looking out at empty space, he could see ships from every corner of the galaxy. They were all heading home, but not as strangers. They were heading home as friends. "We should have stayed in contact," Ji-hoon said, standing beside him. "We could have worked together from the beginning." Hyun-woo smiled, the same gentle smile he had worn when they first met. "Perhaps, but sometimes the galaxy needs people who can see beyond the immediate problem, who can work on solutions that others might not understand." He gestured toward the ships filling the space around Earth. "We're back now, Commander, not as teachers or leaders, but as partners. And the next time the galaxy faces an impossible problem, next time we'll face it together," Ji-hoon finished. Through the transparent walls, the stars shone brightly, each one now safe to burn for billions of years to come. Earth had spoken again, and everything had changed, not through war or conquest, but through the simple human belief that any problem could be solved if people worked together long enough and hard enough to find the answer.